Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for making the time. I know it's quite a taxing few days, so appreciate you guys coming out. And today's focus is really about talking about how we simplify solutions. So focus is on complexity of customer experience and how we are working with AWS to really simplify and make that effortless. So as an introduction, I'm Sachin Naidu, the executive head of our global customer experience practice, and I'm joined by Priyan Pillai. So Priyan will be joining me in a bit and getting into a little bit more detail on some of the solutions we're doing, as well as the innovation we're working with AWS and with a few of our clients. So I'd like to share, just in terms of the agenda, a lot about our partnership. It's been a fantastic journey. So, coming back to my role at NTT, I've been here for 17 years and really been in the contact center and customer experience space. So, once upon a time with our business process services business, looking after contact center operations, my focus over the last 10 years has been with a number of our different CX partners. And really the focus over the last 6 years has been, how do we build solutions and services? Not just transactional capabilities, but really partnering and building value for clients. I'm going to talk about digital transformation, and I know it's a hot topic. You guys are discussing it every day. But I want to share our thinking in terms of what we're seeing, some of the challenges we're seeing, and how we are actually addressing those. Once again, I'd love to just give you guys some insights because it's challenges that we've experienced, and I'm sure you guys are experiencing similar, and how we've actually worked through those. I'll go into a bit of detail on our Connect portfolio and the depth of services. Really important is we've taken a full life cycle approach. So from concept through to execution and management, our focus is really covering that entire life cycle. Another interesting topic is AI agents versus human agents. Lots of AI, I think not a day goes by or probably not an hour goes by without somebody mentioning AI or Agentic AI. But the reality is that we're starting to see a lot of adoption, real use cases. So I'll take you through some of the thinking around where humans are still really important. On the innovation side, we've really looked at how we can actually address challenges, how we can address gaps in terms of the current solution. So I want to go through some of what we've done as NTT, but more importantly, all of these have been born out of client challenges that we need to address. Priyan will go through a lot more about how Amazon Connect has really changed the landscape from CCaaS to composable CX solutions, and why Amazon Connect is so different when we talk about customer experience. He'll also talk to a lot more of the innovation, IP and accelerators that we've built in the specific use cases of where we've deployed it across different verticals, and just to give you guys some insights in terms of what we've done and how we've done it. Priyan will also go through some of the use cases. For me, it's important to talk about theoretical solutions. Most important is, where have we put it into practice? What value is it adding? What problems is it addressing? And Priyan will also go through the Agentic AI framework, because what's really important is AI has to be a native part of any solution going forward. It's not an afterthought, it's not an add-on, it's got to be part and parcel of those initial conversations and how you build out solutions. So if I just share a little bit more about our partnership, when I talk about a consultative approach, as NTT, and I mentioned my background in contact centers and operations, we've had over 40 years of experience running and operating contact centers. And this is really important because our approach has not been one from a technology or systems integrator perspective, but how do you consume that technology? How does it add value to your operations? And operations from an agent through to supervisor, through to management. What we've really done, and deliberately, we focus more on advisory than typical consulting, because it's not about art of the possible. How do you build out focused advisory capabilities based on client requirements? Typically what we do is we do 1 or 2 week workshops, and the focus is how can we add value through the adoption of technology. If we look at AI, once again, I know it needs no introduction, but AI we've seen especially in contact center is multiple layers. So, everybody's talking about it now, but we've seen it. You guys have seen it in the contact center space. Robotics and process automation, IVR. So when I look at AI, Gen AI, Agentic AI, it's really the evolution of where we started off with, RPA and IVR. In fact, Agentic AI to me is replacing what we've done for a number of years with IVR. Sure, it's completely autonomous depending on the different use cases, a lot more insights and analytics, but it's really important is how we actually build out those solutions. And when we look at customer experience, another really important, everybody says, oh, contact center. I said, no, because customer experience is so much more. It is about the entire ecosystem, of which CCaaS is usually one of the foundational components. And that is where, once again, Connect as a platform. A few years ago, there was a lot of hesitation in terms of adopting Connect. And the reason for that is a lot of people said, well, you've got to have a lot of DevOps capabilities, and it's a black box. But what we've seen is that a lot of the maturity that has been put into delivering use cases. And if you look at the entire AWS ecosystem, all of the reporting and analytics, all of the intelligence, all of that wrapped around Connect is where Amazon differentiates. Another interesting topic, and I want to talk a lot more, I'll get into some detail around AI-driven sourcing. How do you use AI to drive your sourcing and people strategy? One of the reasons that AI is actually really prevalent and adding value in the customer experience space is because, we've seen the trend of onshoring to offshoring to lower cost geographies. But now AI has completely shifted that mindset. You can do onshoring, especially in verticals where there's highly sensitive data and there's reasons in terms of being able to manage data sensitivity. But AI can drive that out with significant cost savings. And I'm going to get into a lot more detail. I'll focus around industry-specific CX solutions, and this is where services software comes in, where we're looking at deep domain expertise. We're looking at the platforms and tools that deliver a particular outcome. People talk about outcomes, and that's another fantastic buzzword, but how do you deliver that? So our focus has been creating those solutions that are not generic, but they are specific. So if we look at a particular vertical like financial services or insurance, some of the things that we are doing and working with clients is, how do you focus on delivering those services, those outcomes? So it could be in the insurance world, focus on processing claims or policy admin. It is not about seats and licenses and processes. It's about outcomes. And then on the innovation side, I really want to share, and I mentioned what we've done, how we've done it, and how it pieces together in these broader solutions. If I look at digital transformation, and these are interesting themes. So, elevating CX. Everybody talks about hyper-personalization. How do you do that? Well, with the right solutions, access to the data in real time, with AI natively embedded, you can make data either available to an agentic AI solution or through to a person where you're augmenting that person's capabilities. So, really AWS's ability to deliver full stack composable solutions. And that word to me is really key. The composability of the solution. You could start with a foundational solution and build it up based on requirements that change, new business systems, and as we see businesses starting to evolve their strategy, you need platforms that are going to support that evolution. If I look at migration to modern CX, we've seen the move from on-prem to hosted to cloud native. Even on cloud native, everybody has a different view of what cloud native is. But what's really important is it's not just about cloud. It's about AI native cloud. It's about AI first. How do you build these solutions with the right insights and the right capabilities? Another really important theme and capability is having a tightly integrated solution. And I'm going to talk about total experience in a minute. So it is about delivering customer experience, employee experience, digital experience, all coming together, delivering it with voice, delivering it with managed services, and putting it together as one cohesive solution. And I think last but certainly not least, we tend to forget about human-centric capabilities, human in the loop. As much as we've seen AI, we've seen adoption of AI, you guys have seen the announcements. I think they're fantastic in terms of what AWS is doing, the level of autonomy. But make no mistake, we are going to continue to have people engaged, but elevating the role that people are going to play in different solutions, especially in customer experience. I'm going to talk to a lot more of where we're seeing the roles change to more of supervisory, compliance, governance, and really how people are supporting a lot of the quality outputs that we want AI and agentic AI solutions to deliver. So I briefly mentioned it, total experience. If you guys are not familiar, when we talk about experience, and CX is something that's close to my heart, as you can probably tell, but it's not just about customer experience. It's about employee experience. It's about the agents that enable that engagement with your end clients. It's about the AI and the experience that they deliver. So when we talk about total experience, it is about stitching together what we would call customer experience, employee experience, user experience, digital experience, and piecing all of that together. So having a platform that is tightly integrated, more importantly, natively able to deliver all of these solutions means that you can actually deliver solutions with a combination of people, AI, agentic AI, but deliver it as a seamless experience. So that's great. But how do you achieve that? So some of the challenges we're seeing, and it's still a reality. Tech debt. We still have a lot of on-prem or hosted solutions, lots of mainframe. So one of the biggest challenges is the legacy infrastructure that is still prevalent in a lot of large enterprises. Lack of Gen AI and CX skills at scale. We're all talking about it, and there's usually a small subset of these capabilities, but it is not easily accessible. We see a lot of promise and hype of what AI can deliver, but in some instances, we are not necessarily seeing the actual ROI calcs, or, there's a lot of POC or POV solutions, but it's not necessarily being taken out and scaled into production. Complexity. Most clients have multi-vendor solutions. Combination of legacy, cloud, different vendors. And whilst there's a lot of interoperability and integration, there is still a lot of complexity in terms of how you stitch all of that together. Probably the most important is around governance, security, and compliance. We've seen one of the biggest challenges is, I'm sure you guys have seen examples where AI has completely changed the data that we can make accessible to clients, data that we make accessible to our own agents and employees, and being able to manage and govern that is really key. So I want to go through what does our AWS portfolio look like? What is a typical engagement with a client? So we do everything from advisory, which I've spoken about. And on the advisory, very important, the focus is not about features and capabilities with CCaaS and CX. The focus is about understanding business requirements. We look at customer experience maturity. We look at CX benchmarking. We look at specific use cases, because ultimately the technology and all of the capabilities needs to address business challenges. On the implementation side, focus is on professional services, so all of the build and implementation capabilities. But the professional services is really important because it is not just about configuration. It is about customization. It is about delivering bespoke solutions, relevant, tailored to our client specific requirements. No matter what anybody says, we've never seen two solutions alike. Comes back to the ecosystem, comes back to the requirements, comes back to the different verticals and your specific business drivers. And coming back to the theme of effortless CX, I know that is a charged statement because CX is anything but effortless, highly complicated. A lot of you here are nodding, so I take it that you know exactly how challenging that can be. But our focus has been on how do we simplify that? So managing and operating, building out managed services, and I'll go through a lot more of what that means, but everything from what we would call day two, post-implementation, how do you manage it? How do you operate it? How do you make sure that it's actually delivering what we set out to deliver? And on the managed services side, what we've tried to do is really take away a lot of that complexity. So standard deployment with Connect, we have global service desks with local presence. We've got level 1 to 3 support. Most importantly, we have and this is an interesting one, unlimited MACDs or moves, adds, and changes. Because in a contact center, it's not a static environment. It's a dynamic environment that needs changes all the time. And what we found is that when we deliver a managed service and clients say, hey, listen, change my call flows, my IVR, change my bots, it was contradictory to say we provide it as a managed service, but every single time we need to build out a statement of work, and there's a whole process to do what should be basic changes. Or not necessarily basic, but essential changes to a contact center. So the managed service is really key, making sure that you've got predictable costs, you've got access to the right skills, support, full visibility into your CX environment. So we make available a portal where all of the data, reporting on the entire solution is available and accessible to our clients. And fundamentally, what we've also done is, how do we know that the solution and services are actually delivering as intended? So standard part of the solution is synthetic testing or bots that emulate our clients and customers. So whether it is on voice or any digital channel, we can dial in, listen to the IVR, step through, really emulating what an end customer experience would be. Because, it doesn't help whether it's a vendor issue, a config issue, or whatever it is. If there's impact, we need to know about it, and we need to know about it proactively. So, very interesting topic. AI agents versus human agents. Well, I think, it goes without saying, right? On the AI agent side, we're starting to see a lot of routine, high volume, scalable tasks. And this is where we're starting to see the most amount of adoption. Frontline automation, some of the personalization and tailored solutions I've touched on. But really where AI agents is replacing traditional IVRs. It can do it at the fraction of a cost, far better experience. I mean, how frustrating is it to dial into an IVR versus being able to converse with an AI bot? So if we look at AI agents, anything that is simple, repetitive, predictable, but we're slowly starting to close the gap in terms of the level of complexity and what bots can do. We see it changing every 2 to 3 months. You guys have seen over the last few days in terms of the announcements and the advancements we're seeing. It's unbelievable. What we're actually struggling is to keep up with that pace of innovation and continuing to adopt and embrace a lot of the newer capabilities. But I really believe that the human agents are here to stay in a very different, specific, and focused role. So handling a lot more of the complexity. Somebody asked me a question around, can AI deliver empathy? And it's a very interesting question. I'm sure you guys have got a view on it. Well, it can fake empathy really well, but can it deliver empathy? Well, it depends. So handling empathy, varying transactions, unpredictable queries, that is where people, and we spoke about the various, just this morning, Swami spoke about reinforcement learning, right? So how do you pull together people to support, scale your AI capabilities? This is one of the innovation and investments we've made partnering with AWS. So really, really interesting, and hopefully this will resonate with you guys. We've seen in the contact center and CX space over the last few years, everybody went to digital, omni-channel, chat, email, social, decline of voice. But the decline of voice wasn't as great as everybody thought it would be. The interesting thing is that over the last 12 months, we've seen a significant resurgence of voice. Why? In fact, voice is becoming the new dominant digital channel. We've always had IVR and we have conversational IVR, but it's frustrating. You guys dial in and you speak to this computer automated voice and you got to wait for it. But if you use any of the newer Agentic AI solutions, it is intuitive, low latency. You can have a fluid conversation. You can interrupt it at any time. And all of a sudden, it is very different. You can talk with whatever dialect, you can talk in different languages, but the most important point is the fact that it is low latency, and it is no different to you having a conversation with another person. So what we've done as entities, built out an agentic AI comms gateway that stitches together and enables voice solutions. So we can have all of the security, all of the voice managed securely, and ability to connect to different systems for orchestration, different LLM models, and not just voice, but adding in other channels. So just to share with you guys what that looks like, because in any contact center, and it's not just about Connect. Connect is absolutely core, but if we look at some of the broader ISV partners that Amazon has, Genesys, NICE, etc., being able to stitch together voice with various AI use cases, pulling data from ITSM, CRM, really any line of business system, and managing that and making it available in real time. Because what we've seen is that everybody wants to build out these use cases, but where do you start? How do you get the voice? How do you secure it? Who's going to manage it? And once again, you may have multiple partners, multiple carriers, multiple systems. So the focus is really on the ability to create repeatable, composable solutions. AI-driven sourcing, and I think, I'm going to hand over to Pri in a few minutes, but I want to focus on what does AI-driven sourcing mean. Well, contact centers have been people-driven forever. I spoke about offshoring. Everybody's familiar with onshoring or nearshoring. But what we've seen is that it's no longer about people costs, because you can build an agentic AI bot that is completely autonomous, or it can manage several solutions, depending on the level of complexity, and then hand over to an agent with full context. So to put that into perspective, when you run a contact center, typically everybody focuses on things like average handle time. And the average handle time is usually between 4 to 6 minutes, depending on the vertical or the nature of transaction, the level of complexity. If I just look at some of the use cases that I've shared, Q&A or knowledge use case, based on the cost, and onshore is really based on North America and some of Europe. So based on the handle time of that 4 to 6 minutes, the cost of those agents, it's usually about $6 to $10. And we've seen it over the last 15, 20 years. Offshoring to low-cost geographies. Fantastic. Significantly lower cost, you can see typically $3 to $4, maybe $5. But it comes with its own challenges in terms of language, in terms of being able to represent brands, And now we've got Agentic AI solutions that can really deliver it at the fraction of a cost. But it's not just about the cost. It increases things like customer satisfaction, net promoter score. In some instances, I mentioned certain industries, public sector, healthcare, financial services, they may or may not want to offshore based on sensitivity, based on regulations that they need to comply to. So what we're seeing is that Agentic AI can deliver these solutions. And one of the most important use cases is in the contact center, because there's demonstrable value. You can have a look at a business case, and there's immediate value in terms of what you can do, how you can do it. Because the first thing when you have conversations is, what is the business case? What is the return on investment? When will we realize that? When you have people costs, there is very real, tangible results. And I know that it opens up a broader question in terms of the people management, but we've seen that a lot of enterprises are repurposing and upskilling a lot of those agents to do higher level, higher complexity, more customization, more personalized, solutions or engagement where, like I said, empathy is needed. So, very interesting space. Really important is that these solutions are being deployed at scale, and the value that we're seeing, the value to our clients and ultimately passing that on to their end customers is phenomenal. So, last slide, and I'll hand over to Priyan to get into a lot more detail around the innovation and specifically what we're doing with Connect. Another example of what we've done is Foresight. This is our own IP as NTT. Real-time speech analytics, we hold quite a few patents on it. Our speech engine, all powered by AWS. The ability to do true real time. So, you could be an agent in the contact center. Firstly, it could be a highly compliant contact center where the agent didn't say, hey, listen, I need to tell you this call is recorded. The agent may make a recommendation that is actually against the company policy. Immediately can be flagged. You may have an irate customer who says, hey, listen, this is the third time I'm calling in and I'm really upset. In real time, it flags certain keywords. It can pass it on to a supervisor who can either coach the agent or, more importantly, just get into the call and say, hey, listen, how can I assist? Let me help you. Post-COVID, everybody's seeing remote working. It's a new norm. So how do you manage contact center agents who are no longer physically in front of you? As a supervisor, I could walk the contact center floor. I've got 10 to 15 agents, and I could manage them. Now, they could be sitting anywhere in the world. So some of the tools we've got, like virtual seat map, it builds you a virtual map of your agents. What they're saying, what they're doing, keywords, and very simple green, amber, red. I can understand where the agents need support, where they need nurturing. I can have a look at who's the best performing agent based on what they do, the FAQs, the knowledge base, and I can use that for training purposes. So a lot of that insights is taken and fed back in terms of how do you improve the training, the real-time management. So just another example of how we are building these solutions for real use cases. With that, I'd love to introduce Priyan Pillai, and he's going to go into a lot more detail on what we're doing and how we're doing it with Connect. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash. A good intro to the topic. I guess my portion of the presentation is more on the applications of what Sachin spoke about from a generative AI perspective and the different technologies that we use. I guess to start off, we've been doing this for about 9 years now in terms of Amazon connecting contact centers and moving customers from legacy solutions to the cloud. So we were there when there was no generative AI. We were there when it was just, the buzzword was text-to-speech. So using Poly to no longer have to have pre-recorded messages. That was the exciting bit 9 years ago. Then we moved into the space of having other bits of innovation in. So putting Lex in to have conversational IVR for predetermined intents. And then slowly, as the years progressed, we went into generative AI, and that was the last year, probably the last 24 months, leading into the new phase of 26. Essentially, the pattern we've always used over the last 9 years was Lego blocks. And the reason why we use Lego blocks is because a lot of people believe Amazon Connect is the only service that's used in your contact center, and that's brutally wrong. The average AWS contact center user from an enterprise level uses on average 25 services in AWS to empower the contact center. So it's important that everyone understands that that's what makes Amazon Connect powerful, is the fact that you can leverage the services around it, which is why we take the Lego block approach to say that no two customers' contact centers are the same. It's because no two customers have the same business strategy. If you did, it doesn't make you a differentiator in the market. So from an ecosystem perspective, I guess there's nothing much that can differentiate partners other than the way that we stitch things together. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the whole bunch of services, and I'm not taking, an NTT won't take any credit for the services that Amazon provide. They're very good in the market. They release things really quickly. They listen to their partners. They listen to the customers. There's been instances where us as NTT have put innovation thoughts or feature enhancements into their backlog because of our customers needing certain feature enhancements in the contact center, and we've seen realization of that. Some of the benefits coming out of the new reInvent releases for Amazon Connect around dynamic GUIs and generative AI voices. So now you no longer pick a particular voice, you can use generative AI for your text-to-speech. But essentially, what we've been doing for the last 8-9 years was the middle bit of the Venn diagram. So we've been building microservices that stitch the 3 different parameters in a contact center together. The first one is, of course, the AWS platform. The second one is any best-of-breed cloud-native tools. So again, Amazon doesn't force you to use everything from Amazon Connect. You could bring the best-of-breed, and there's ways to get it to work seamlessly in your contact center. And then the last bit is not everyone migrates to cloud at the same speed. So you'll see that in most of cases, you've got APIs that are still offered on-premise via on-premise gateways. Not everything has moved to the cloud. So that integration path between the cloud and your network is extremely important. Things like VDI connectivity for voice and those type of things. So we spent the last 9 years building microservices to stitch everything together. And as with anything, as the years progress, we got a lot better, and we've got a lot of automations running that can make migrations a lot quicker. However, the caveat is, as we got better at the existing stuff, there were new stuff being released, so it's a continuous cycle. Some of the areas that were exciting, excuse me, about 5 years ago. So contact lens, which is speech analytics, self-service, so getting more automation in so you don't have to wait in queues. And then some of the other functionalities like chatbots with Lex, etc. So those were innovations that drove change into Amazon Connect over the last potentially 5 years. And then we realized that, to the point I was saying of microservices, we then went into thinking about how could we safely deploy contact centers quicker. How could we reuse patterns that we've learned over the various customers we take care of into new customers or to existing customers that are a bit slower at getting to innovation parts. And that's where we worked with our infrastructure team to build NAMs. So what NAMs is essentially we first had to believe in the generative AI for us to be able to offer it to our customers. So what NAMs is a generative AI release tool that we use to build packages of components of contact center. So what that means is that we've pre-packaged components that we think are valuable to customers for innovation or are valuable to customers that are moving to the cloud. Things like dynamic contact center flows, things like bots for certain servicing areas in customers' contact centers. So we've packaged all of this good stuff and we've made it available in a catalog where NAMs is now used to run it much quicker and build it dynamically in different customer environments. The important bit for NAMs is the fact that we've also incorporated security protocols and security checks, which allow us to safely deploy it and allow code to be safely scanned and become ready for deployment in the customer environments, which then also allows us to use Gen AI to empower our engineers that are shipped off at our customers to do the different deployments. So thus offering quality at scale. So we started this initiative, and it's an ongoing initiative, but we started this initiative and we worked with the generative AI process, and then we've got to a point where, we believe we've eaten our own dog food, we believe in the tech, and now we're going into our customers to put the generative AI field in from a CX and UX perspective. So what we then did is we looked at all our customers in general. So I'm going to quickly skim through 3 different customers of 3 different landscapes. Yes, they're FSI, but different regions of the world, different customer base. The first one is a global, a very big African FSI with a large range of customers of different demographics, so different earning potentials, different dialects, different patterns of spend, different interaction patterns, different ages. So that's the first type of customer. The second type was also an FSI that is a lot newer to the market. They had a much younger customer base. They were also for the people, so they were more of the lower to mid earners of the customer base. And then the last one is a European bank that, again, very ambitious. They had a very mature estate. They needed to move that to the cloud. They do have the European market, so a lot of youngsters at this customer, a lot of different dialects because of the multinationals that live in the country. So all 3 of these different logos had something similar, even though their pattern of business was different. It was, how do we service our customers quicker? How do we reduce our operational spend? And how do we ensure that CX goes up CX goes up, but OPEX goes down from a spend perspective, which results in the customers in general wanting one thing, is generative AI. It's a buzzword. Everyone wants to put generative AI in. The important bit was, how do you do it safely? So in the next slide, it's going to be a voice note playing of one of the bots that we built. Again, you can make it sound as realistic as you want, especially with the new release that came out now at re:Invent. But what we wanted to figure out is, what is the correct pattern between generative AI and agentic AI and all these different NLP bots that customers would have had when they built Lex, when Lex was a buzzword a couple years ago.
Hi, I'm Iondan AI Service Assistant. How can I help you?
Hi, can you please tell me more about NTT?
NTT Data is a global leader in IT services and digital transformation. If you need more specific details, feel free to ask.
What services can NTT offer?
NTT Data offers a wide range of services, including digital transformation, consulting, managed services. They provide cutting-edge technology solutions to various industries such as finance, healthcare, government, and manufacturing. If you need more specific information about any of these services, just let me know.
Thank you for that. What are the key drivers of digital transformation according to NTT data?
According to NTT data, the key drivers of digital transformation are improved customer experience, operational efficiency, ability to innovate and adapt to market changes. If you need more details on any of these drivers, feel free to ask.
I was wondering if we can actually schedule an appointment with NTT for a demo.
Sure, I can help you with that. Could you please provide your email address so I can look up your contact record and proceed with scheduling the appointment?
Okay, that's marnus.botha@global.ntt.
Great. I found your contact record. What date would you like to schedule the demo for?
Tomorrow at around 12?
The available time slots for tomorrow are 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Would you like to schedule the demo for 12 p.m. to 2 p.m.?
Yep, that's fine.
Your demo with NTT has been successfully scheduled for tomorrow from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. If you need any further assistance, feel free to ask.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cheers. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
So the voice note is not meant to be all and end all of what Agentic AI can do. We understand there's much better ways to have the bot to be more human-like, to be more seamless. There's various use cases to build for Agentic AI and generative AI. But what we tried to do with that particular use case was that was built overnight. We took an engineer, we gave them particular APIs, we created dummy APIs for particular use cases, simulating readily available APIs at our customer's workspace. And we created dummy profiles which mimicked CRM. And we asked the engineer to build something of value that had two different journeys, a structured and an unstructured journey. The reason why we asked for that is because the whole point of generative AI in the contact center is so that you can minimize the differential points that customers enter your contact center and have a single point of entry that can understand, guide, and navigate that customer to the right point of your contact center. 15 years ago, that was a phone number. So a phone number will get you to the right area, so we know when you dial the phone number, we roughly know why you want to get to the contact center. Then that phone number went to a DTMF IVR to get to a queue, because then that shrunk your requirements even more. So we pinpointed and said, okay, they found this phone number, there's 4 queues, they're going to queue 3, so these are roughly the agents that I should send this call to, or this interaction to. The point of generative AI in the contact center is so that that bot can minimize the amount of manual filtering that we are doing in the contact center and subsequently service simultaneously for things that we do know should be helped in the contact center. So an unstructured fulfillment, which is the top journey, is essentially, I don't know why I'm calling the contact center. I don't know what my customer is going to need, but I know they need something. So that bot should be able to understand a variation of inputs and roughly navigate the customer to the correct journey. That correct journey could be a queue, it could be another self-service, or it could be a knowledge article. So in an unstructured fulfillment, what we've realized is the best way to build the conversational bot or the chat bot that needs to be more dynamic is to have the unstructured journey as the parent bot that's linked to a large knowledge article base, and that large knowledge article base has to be cleaned. And different customers have different levels of clean data. The important part is garbage in, garbage out, right? So you cannot expect the bot to be brilliant at everything. The cleaner the data, the more structured the data, the easier the bot will find it. We did some tests where we had very dirty data, and then we had very clean data, and there was a 50% higher time to answer, because remember the bot is computing when you give it inputs, and then a 50% to a 60% better or more quality response where it meant something to me as the asker of the question. So a big part of our generative AI journey is that cleaning of data. So that gives you your unstructured journey, so the generative AI bot journey. Once the generative AI bot picks up what you need, and let's assume you need something that I have a process flow, map flow, i.e. your traditional self-service, I then send you to a child bot, which is generally Lex, which is you can do today. And Lex does the API calls to fulfill your journey so that you don't have to put the customer back into a different self-service journey. You just put it into a different bot using the handing over from the parent to child. And there can be multiple child bots fulfilling multiple API journeys. The important bit there that made that successful is the quality of the APIs, the speed of the APIs. And then the last bit is how often are people actually going to use this? So what we generally do in this instance is we do a scope of the customer's estate and do a narrative in terms of what's the most used journeys. And generally that also comes out of your interviews with agents, et cetera, to understand why are customers calling you? Because agents, believe it or not, would know your contact center better than execs running it, because they are on the ground talking to the customers. So you spend a lot of time with the agents when designing these process flows. So that's the customer-facing one. Now what we're working on is the user-facing agentic AI. So you replace the top half, which is knowledge repositories, and you replace that with models built on contact center data. So what we're working on, and what our plan for FY26 for our existing customers, is to input a agentic contact center manager bot that's not meant to replace contact center managers, it's meant to enhance them and get their job done quicker. We listened over the last 9 years. We listened for what the pain points are. SLAs are the biggest item in the contact center. Every contact center manager that I've ever met at every customer only cares about SLAs. Why? Because that is the single metric that generally is used to judge how well a contact center is performing. So everyone does a whole bunch of funny things to keep their SLAs up. But what if you had a bot that could, or a model that could preemptively make decisions to keep that SLA up? Because it's rules at the end of the day. Yes, it's one person that understands the business that's making those rules, and that's selfish to build your business around that one person. So you should rather build a model around it, and that's what we're working on now, is the different variations of models for contact centers that take things like operational stats, survey scores, agents, evaluations, so that you can do things like move agents in real time before in routing profiles to keep your SLAs up. If a person is calling for the 5th time into the contact center for the same thing, that means that you definitely need to get that person to the right agent, and the right agent is generally the agent with the lowest handling time, the highest evaluation scores, and the highest survey scores statistically. So that bot will decide and put it into that agent queue so that that agent can help the person who's calling for the 5th time. So in totality, that's what our plan is for 26, is to help the users now manage their contact centers better. Thank you. This is just a screenshot of a QR code that can be used to see one of our use cases. But I'll open the floor to questions. Sorry, there's only about 5 minutes, but yeah.